here we are. I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking to songwriter, piano player Johnny Iguana, whose group, the Claudettes, are releasing their 6th studio album, Garage Glamour, on Pravda Records, either today or tomorrow, depending on when I actually put this episode out. If I put it out on Thursday the 4th, the album's out tomorrow. And if I put it out on Friday the 5th, the album is out this very day. And this is one of, I would say, the most enjoyable conversations that I have had in my time doing music interviews. A very wide-ranging conversation where Johnny and I not only go through basically the whole history of the Claudettes, the various different releases, the different lineups, the different stylistic, I don't even want to say stylistic changes, just the different styles that are a part of their music, as well as touching on all kinds of different other influences and inspirations. We talk about Husker Du and Sugar and Bob Mould. We talk about Ian MacKaye and Fugazi and Minor Threat. And we talk about blues. We talk a bit about jazz. We talk about rock and roll. We talk about Van Morrison. We talk about the Rolling Stones, which it perhaps is not totally crazy given that the sound of the Claudettes is so eclectic. They are, in fact, or they have referred to themselves at a certain point, as it says on Wikipedia. Not that I like to refer to Wikipedia, but apparently they have at certain points referred to themselves as piano, boogie, punk, blues, and cabaret rock and roll. And I think that probably just about covers it. We also get into talking about various aspects of the music industry. We talk about Johnny's other work as a freelance writer. We talk about the practicalities of trying to make a living as a musician. We talk about touring. We talk about various mishaps. We talk about COVID. We talk about all kinds of music-related stuff. I found it inspiring. It made me even more aware of the fact that I have to actually more regularly get my guitar out of its guitar case and experience the pleasure of creating and making music and just essentially, feeding that creative spirit inside me. So it was an inspiring conversation. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoy the latest record. And if you haven't heard it, give it a listen. If you haven't heard the band, give them a listen. And if you have heard it, and you have heard them, then I hope you will enjoy this in-depth discussion of the latest album and the band's music. If you'd like to read a review, you can go to Ghost Cult magazine, where our writer Duncan Evans has just recently put up a review of the album, and Duncan's reviews are always excellent. So if you're interested in reading some insights on the record, I thoroughly recommend going and checking that out. If you want to get hold of the album, it's available on vinyl and on CD, as well as the usual online streaming services, etc., etc. You can get it from Pravda Records. You can get it from the band's website. It should be available in stores as well. And is there anything else I need to say? Oh, yes, the band is going to be playing lots of shows over the coming months. You can go to their website to get a full list of dates. And their website, very helpfully, is theclaudettes.com. Nothing too complicated there. You can follow me at Tom Osman Sounds. You can go to my website, tomosmansounds.com, for links to my music, for writings about my music. It's about time that I need to do an update. And you can check out my music on Bandcamp and on Ampwall. You can also go check out my column on DIY underground music with New Noise magazine. You can find it in print. You can also get it on the website. Mapping the Underground is the name of the column. There are 2 features so far. In fact, very, very shortly, I will be writing up the 3rd to appear in the next print edition of the magazine. And I've got a couple of interviews coming up for the column. So I'm very excited about that. I hope that you will enjoy my writings. This podcast, the column, a lot of what I've been doing in music writing and interviews for the past 2 or 3 years has kind of all been going in the same direction of investigating DIY and underground music. So I'm very happy that I'm in this position, that I'm able to do this. And if you'd like to read my things, as well as listening to my things here, watching my things here, I would be delighted. And with all of that said, I will play a little clip from one of the tracks from Garage Glamour, and beyond that, there is nothing left to be said but Johnny Iguana of the Claudettes and more in fact, as he will discuss. Take it away.
When I said I wanted revolution, I was asking you to spin around. When I said we should get moving, I didn't mean get out of town.
Hi, you're in Glasgow, is that right?
You are 100% correct, yes. Have you been here before?
I've been to Edinburgh and I have not been to Glasgow. And I remember being in Edinburgh being told that Glasgow is the arts town and Edinburgh is not. But I know there's festivals and stuff in Edinburgh, so.
Yeah, the way that I tend to think of the difference between Edinburgh and Glasgow from a sort of a show point of view is I think Edinburgh is very good for standing around with your arms crossed. Glasgow is a bit more interactive.
Do you know Dismemberment Plan, the band?
Ooh, maybe vaguely
They
familiar.
they were a DC band. I think they've reunited, out of the same areas, Fugazi and the whole DC scene, but they have a song. They're very snarky with their attitude. Their album called Emergency and I was produced by Chad Clark of the band The Beauty Pill. They're all from the Discord label, family. But they have a song called Doing the Standing Still, which is about playing a super dancey, funky song and the crowd just standing there with their arms crossed, being too hip and too cool for school,
That's the way I think of Edinburgh. There was years ago. I don't know if you've crossed paths with Greg Dully of Afghan Wigs and Twilight Singers. Are you?
I wish I'd had.
Well, I got a chance to see Twilight Singers some years ago when they were doing a European tour, and they played Edinburgh and Glasgow. So this was like the first opportunity I had to do a proper A/B testing of the difference between crowds. And it was literally, I went with a friend of mine, and at the Edinburgh show, we were stuck behind these big guys that just had their arms folded and we're trying to get to the front to dance. And in the Glasgow show, everyone was dancing. So that's kind of where I've taken my evidence from.
It is funny. It only takes to witness it twice to decide that that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
To establish
Everyone there
the
is like that. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the record that you've got behind you there?
My uncle, who produced a bunch of the new Claudettes album, was in the inner circle of the Cars when I was a little kid. I got to see the Cars in Philadelphia opening for Foreigner, and he was listed as their road manager, but he was friends with all those guys. He was a guitar player that Elliot Easton admired. He was right in the studio when they made the records. He was really a creative contributor to the band, and that's a platinum commemoration from Elektra Records of Candio.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I was aware that your uncle was a producer or was involved with the making of the latest record. So thinking about, listening to the latest record or the forthcoming record, which I really enjoy. It's a very varied album in terms of the different influences that I can hear on it. And being aware of some of the other projects that you've had and the people that you've worked with, and the fact that when we started talking, you instantly started talking about DC hardcore. It seems like there's been a lot of different music that's permeated through your life. Were you sort of growing up with music all around you from a very early age?
Yeah, well, my mother and I listened to a lot of classical music, and we started piano lessons on the same day with the same teacher. And I did it for 5 years. She did it for something like 5 lessons. She felt she was plateauing, and she saw me ascending, and she was sick of the sight of the whole thing, and she departed the endeavor. I got obsessed, and I stopped going outside. And by the time I was 13, when I stopped with the lessons, I was in bands. So she took great pride in driving me to my band practices and helping me carry amps and stuff like that back then. That was really nice. But so, I think a fairly common trajectory of classical lessons kind of got my fingers aware of what to do on a piano, and also instilled a lifelong love of classical music. But by the time I was 13, I had piano books full of everything from Michael Jackson to Rush, just the whole album, and could play it on acoustic piano, and then started getting synthesizers and playing the contemporary sounds. So first for me, it was pop radio, and then it was classic rock, went back in time to Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. But then my uncle, who was really, really a big blues lover among many things, he recognized that he felt I needed to know the roots of the music I was listening to in Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. So he mailed me a copy of Junior Wells' Hoodoo Man Blues, a copy of Jimmy Smith's Organ Grinder Swing, and a cassette mixtape he made that had the Treniers and Lonnie Mack and all kinds of great R&B. And that when I received that from him, I was 15. For a 15-year-old kid in the Philadelphia suburbs, I was aware of exactly none of that music. No one I knew was listening to blues, jazz, or R&B. Like, I mean, maybe R&B in terms of what was on the radio. I mean, I guess at that point you could file the Gap Band or the Dazz Band or Michael Jackson or something under R&B, but it was contemporary pop music, But that stuff he sent me from the 50s and 60s, I didn't know at all. And at that point, I became a way more eclectic, not only listener but player. I just had to learn. He sent me this Otis Spann piano stuff, and he got to meet Otis Spann, and I just got obsessed with practicing the left-hand piano figures on the piano, the kind of barrel house, shuffle piano, blue Chicago shuffle stuff on piano. And then the Jimmy Smith had the walking organ stuff, and I had some organ sounds on my keyboards. So I was really into playing baseball and tennis up until then, and then it was just all out the window. I was just indoors. I became very indoorsy.
And so I guess I have this sense, I mean, this is partly from my own experience, that when I was in primary school, I remember the school was keen on the students to learn an instrument. And this is before I had any notion I wanted to learn guitar. And so I was basically presented with two options, either the violin or the flute. And I decided, well, the flute probably doesn't sound as bad when you're just starting. So I went for the flute. But I had I didn't know, oh God, what's that band called now? That Aqualung is their most famous album.
Jethro Tull.
Jethro Tull. I had no notion of Jethro Tull at that point. I had no sort of contemporary examples of people playing the flute. So I had no particular Moon Dance. Yes, I didn't know Van Morrison at that point either. So I feel like whether that's to blame or it was just kind of my lack of industriousness at that point, but I gave up on the flute pretty quickly. I wasn't much of a student. And then eventually I found guitar, and that was something that I was really interested in. But for you, starting the piano relatively young, you didn't go through a phase where you went, oh, I'm sick of this. This is just kind of like work.
Absolutely not. And I never have, which is something I'm thankful for. I mean, I find that when the world is seeming mystifying and troubling to me, I call it Ouija boarding, to be able to just put my hands on the piano and not think of music theory, but really just move hands around the piano and play different chords is just the most soothing thing in the world. I'm sure on guitar you can feel the same, to put your leg up on your other leg and strum a little bit. It just changes your heart rate,
Yeah.
It's something I'm really thankful for. The other day, someone asked me about musical advice, and for every reason, I just say go to your instrument a lot. You can get better all the time. You can get so inspired and excited and be impervious to things that might get you down. And I think the world would be a much more peaceful place if there was a piano in every single domicile. I really think if people could just, instead of arguing or yelling, if they could just press down keys, and this, what an invention to give us, It's really pretty amazing. But also I realized I left out, when my uncle sent me all that blues and R&B stuff, I was already in the midst of freaking out over Minutemen and Wire and The Clash and Husker Du. And so I got an album when I was playing tennis on an exchange program in Sweden when I was 16, called Live at the Roxy, which was a very low fidelity live album made during like a 5-month period where this club had burgeoning punk bands that had nowhere else to play. And it's X-Ray Specs, Buzzcocks, Wire, Slaughter and the Dogs, and Eater. Oh, Eater. And Eater were like 15 or 17 years old, all the people in that band. They were my age when they recorded this. But that really lit a fire. And also I think a lot of people had friends with older brothers who were listening to really cool stuff that we got to getting away from the current pop radio, we were able to, for us, it was The Cure and Echo and the Bunnymen, that we heard that was something we weren't hearing on the radio. So all at the same time, I got separately into punk and new wave, post punk, and then also blues and jazz and R&B, and like all of that, plus my classical lessons, all have always just been swirling around together. And it's hard for me to knock down walls between them when I'm coming up with ideas because I hear Mose Allison and I hear he must have loved Chopin. There are chromatic runs he does that sound like, oh, I'm hearing things I think he was hearing that no one has ever asked him about or talked
Mm.
about. I feel like I hear that in lots of music where I can pick up on a little Chopin melody or something like that, or rock. As I just had written there's some Rachmaninoff and Touch You Back on our new album, and only one person I know who runs a studio in Chicago called me on it. I was delighted.
I was to that point about all these different influences and all these different elements. You know, when I was learning guitar, for me, it was sort of a relatively straightforward equation that I would listen to music and I'd sort of be singling out the guitar and going, can I play these guitar parts or some sort of approximation? But with some of those bands that you've mentioned, like in the punk or the hardcore scene, they wouldn't necessarily be piano driven. Although now that I mention that, I do remember some quote from Ian MacKaye saying that originally he wrote, I think it was minor threat songs on piano before putting them on guitar. But what was that like for you? Know, when you're listening to music that's inspiring you, but it's not necessarily played on piano, how would you then relate that to what you're playing yourself?
Well, I mean, for years, people will ask me what your influences on keyboard, and really, for a lot of my greatest influences are Mike Watt, Joe Strummer, and Bob Mould. And with Bob Mould, he plays mostly add nines because when you're playing the distorted electric guitar, you're not going to play a major or minor third. The third will just never sound in tune. A lot of times it's the root, it's the fifth, and it's a fifth above that, and that's what Bob Mould is doing all the time. And I had a band called Oh My God for years, and everything I did was distorted organ, like so distorted that I would say it made John Lord seem like the choir organ player, the church organ player. Like it was really, really, it sounded very much like Husker Du, just the first chord of like a Zen Arcade song or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't spin the Leslie. I had very specific drawbar settings, but far and away, Bob Mould was the biggest influence on that, on the types of chord changes and the types of voicings that I would do. And even right now, when the Claudettes played, we just played Miser Lou, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct, the Dick Dale hit that was in Pulp Fiction,
Oh yeah.
boom, 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 which when I looked it up is like, it's like a 500-year-old melody, and they argue whether it's Arabic, Greek, or Jewish, or the possible, origins. But I did find a 1946 hit piano version of it. But the Claudettes have played Rumble by Link Wray. We've played Sleepwalk by Santo and Johnny. We play a lot of songs that I think are definitive guitar songs, But right now we do a great version of the Kinks' Victoria. I was driving and I heard Victoria, and it's got like a kind of a shuffly. They loved blues and country, all this American roots music, the Kinks, and they were so good at it,
Mm.
and they were incredible songwriters, But so we do a great version of Victoria, and it works great as a piano song. I do a version of Riff Raff from Bon Scott AC/DC,
Oh, I love that
and
tune. Yeah.
doesn't that sound like a piano line? I mean,
Yeah, now that
it
you
works.
mention it, for sure.
The first time I sat down, I'm like, this is an old boogie piano song. I mean, that Angus Young and boogie are like a thing. He was into Chuck Berry or whatever you were going to call that, boogieing. It's funny how when you strip Husker Du away down to its music, there's Beach Boys in it. When you strip AC/DC
Mm.
away, there's Chuck Berry in it. It's like there's the sonics of it, but there's also the music at the root of it. If you did have it on a piano book, you'd go, oh, I mean, a lot of that Husker Du stuff is pop music. It
Absolutely,
just really
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, I mean, Grant Hart and Bob Mould both fantastic ear for melody. It's funny, I was actually
Oh,
just listening to Bob Mould's most recent album just the other
mm,
day because from time to time, there's just something about his melodies. Like in that band that he had, Sugar, that
yeah.
first album, Copper Blue. I
Yeah.
remember the first time I ever heard that, just certain songs on that and the melodies just hit me in a way. I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I've been looking for. And
Yeah.
it's nice to listen to his most recent stuff and to hear that he's still got that ear for melody. There's just something about Bob Mould. He's got a particular ear for melody that, like, you can hear, like you say, underlying influences, but he's definitely carved out something that's very uniquely his melodic style.
Do you remember Workbook?
Yeah.
Wasn't it kind of shocking? I mean, I guess there was some acoustic guitar on Husker Du albums. There was a little bits of it, but to hear him go fully that way, it almost sounded like 90s, like pop rock or something at times. But he has you're right, an unerring ear for melody, and there's always a lot of heart in it. I mean, that's the thing that matters most. Does
Yeah.
the person who's singing it sound like they really care,
Yeah,
and when you see
definitely.
the show, you want the same thing. That's really all I ever say to the band before we go out and play is like, mistakes don't matter, just play with your heart, lead with your heart, and it'll be a great show.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly the right principle to have. And I suppose as well, if you come up appreciating punk music, then you identify that it's about the passion and the soul versus
Mhm.
necessarily sort of specific musical ability. Although obviously, the ability comes into it too.
Did you ever get to see The Clash?
No, did you?
I did. I was I think 13, and I saw, Mick Jones had left the band under notorious circumstances, and so I think they had. I wonder. I'm trying to remember who replaced him. He was someone that also played with other really well known on Cut the Crap.
The
There was
much
a
the much
well-known.
maligned cut
Oh,
the
maybe he
crap.
was exactly and justifiably maligned. Although I did have a Cut the Crap poster in my bedroom, um, but I think he was the guy from Public Image Limited, maybe that played took his
Ah,
place.
okay.
But Joe Strummer, I think it was that when I was just a young teenager and saw him on Saturday Night Live with his mohawk, I just got he just seems like the coolest human being I'd ever seen before. And he's got that great rasp, and when I saw that DVD documentary, West Way to the World, it was just hearing him interview. He was such a combination of really intelligent and worldly and really earthy and honest and sincere and humble. It's almost like impossible. It's like, I feel like the hippest person ever who just comes off as a great, humble guy I'd love to hang out with.
Yeah.
And that was where I fell short. My three greatest heroes as a teenager were Junior Wells, whose band I ended up joining and playing for 3 years. Mike Watt, and he ended up sleeping at my house once with his whole band and opening, and my band opened for him in Chicago at the Double Door. And I'm going to be speaking with him in July, which is nice, on his podcast. And Joe Strummer and my band, oh my God, were on a very short list to open for the Mescaleros at Metro when he died.
Oh,
So I almost got all three. I was driving to a dentist appointment and there was a Clash song on the radio. And then when it was over, I went to commercial, I switched to another radio and there was a Clash song. And I was like, yes, two Clash songs. Literally, when I kept flipping, turned to another station, there was a Clash song, I pulled the car over. At that point, I was like, there's something wrong. There's
mm,
no, all these, like this station that usually would be playing Foghat is playing The Clash. It's
yeah.
like something's wrong, and indeed they said he was walking his dog and had a heart attack at 50. It just killed me. It was just,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, one of the many times you realize just, hey, the gift of music is so great. Work really hard at it and travel the world as much as you can and get really good so people ask you to come. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, also as well, just in general, the opportunities to spend time with people or to do things with people are not infinite. So sometimes you've got to
Yeah.
take the plunge and get into something straight away.
Absolutely, and it feels like you're kind of piling it on. Some of my bandmates, I think, at times are like, "Okay, hit the brakes here a little bit, fella," because I'm just nonstop with, "Okay, we're going to make a video. We have to have band practice. That band practice was good, but we need another. I really want to add this song, and it's just like people have lives, and sometimes I'm like, "Don't have lives, have this band."
So there are a variety of different questions I have about the band's history and about the lineup. In terms of the forthcoming album, Garage Glamour, is this your sixth or your seventh album as a
It's
Claudettes?
the sixth. The thing that's the seventh thing was like we did a live recording and video shoot in my room where my acoustic piano is, and it's like an unplugged kind of thing, and it was digital only. It was like that first label we were on, which is a Memphis label called Yellow Dog Records. Put it out digitally only, and it's just like 6 or 7 songs, and you can hear the audio, or you can also watch the video when we recorded that audio.
Okay.
And it was half and half original songs, and we did Ruby and the Romantics, Our Day Will Come. We did a mashup that we were doing of Pink Floyd's Us and Them with Sitting on the Dock of the Bay.
Nice.
And Yeah, it was a really nice version. We did the Sunday's most famous song, "Here's Where the Story Ends," which I love so much, and then the rest of it were our own songs.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the elusive seventh. That's where the seventh thing. That's the seventh thing.
That
Yeah,
clarifies that. So then so the first album was Infernal Piano Plot Hatched.
yeah,
And at that
hmm
time you were a duo. So was that
yes,
purely instrumental at that point?
it is, and so is half of the second one called "No Hotel," whose title came from what we all go through trying to book gigs, where I just asked someone for a gig and their response was, "Yeah, you get $200, you have to play all night, you get half off food, half off drinks, and no hotel." It was I didn't even ask about a hotel, okay? It's like, did you set out to upset me, with my lot in life? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, and then when I bent over, they got me in the chin. Because yeah. So, but the first one was fully instrumental. The second one, this woman named Yana was briefly in the group, who was mostly a dancer. She was Nigerian American. She liked to sing French yeye songs, so we did a bunch of those, and which fit really well in with the band's kind of vaudeville burlesque blues thing that we started, because all that French yeye stuff was, beret wearing Frenchmen singing like American R&B and blues stuff, in French. I love that stuff though, the Serge Gainsbourg stuff and all that. We
Yeah.
did several of them. It's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's obviously been very enduring because that's grabbed a lot of people.
Yeah, it's true. It doesn't go away. Yeah. But we were inspired by this Otis Spann SP Leary duo recording on the compilation called Chicago the Blues Today, that was just piano and drums recordings, some instrumental, some vocal. And we just thought, Michael and I, who kind of grew up musically together in a way, we thought, let's see if we can make an album and a whole show that's just instrumental piano and drums, kind of a challenge to ourselves. Can you entertain and excite people for 80 minutes with just piano and drums without being virtuosos? Kind of more from the blues and punk back, way of just like really go at it. Not, of course, Oscar Peterson, could do that, play in 80 minutes of piano, but you're talking about like several times a century, virtuoso on the instrument. Herbie Hancock can go do that. But me coming from that bluesy and punky background, I thought that was just something that would be a fun challenge for us. And we intended it to be bluesy, but very quickly all these other influences got in there. And that first one's pretty trippy. We recorded it all with a lot of echo, and there's a lot of left turns in the music, but it was very clear we were just having fun with it. And we came up with it and recorded it very quickly.
Well, to the point about the various different influences again, one of the things I did notice, at least from the title, that there is a nod to Motorhead.
From that title?
Because you've got the umlauts. If I see umlauts
Oh.
over the O, that tells me that that's a Motorhead reference.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, you're right in a way that I do like putting excessive umlauts. I'm a big fan of that. Also, just excessive punctuation. I had an Oh My God album where every song had an exclamation point at the end. It's just part of it is, I mean, I was a copywriter. I wrote the back covers of books. We call it cover copy, and I really like. Sometimes just the look of the text is appealing to me. Like the way this title looks in print. I don't know. I like he did call me on that. That's true. But also Raymond Scott was the huge influence on that first record, because if that's the music that he did that was kind of co-opted by the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes franchise, the music that was in all those like Bugs Bunny cartoons. Can you picture how Powerhouse goes from Raymond Scott?
No,
It,
not off
it,
the
it
top of my
starts
head.
off, you've heard it. It starts off going, and then in the middle it goes, it's whenever someone like a cartoon character is creeping around at night, they would play, dum, bum, 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 bum. It's like, there's a documentary I insist you see, you should write down, this about Raymond Scott, and his son made it. I think it's something about discovering my father. It's a documentary about Raymond Scott made by his son, because Raymond Scott was not a good family man and his son did not grow up knowing his father. But he basically led like a quintet who came up with all these fanciful names for. I'll read you some of his instrumental pieces, which were kind of gonzo jazz blues. It sounds like big band, but it's like 5 pieces.
Would this be,
Raymond-
is it Deconstructing Dad? Is that
Yes, it
the
is. So first, so here's this his titles here are New Year's Eve in a Haunted House. These are all instrumentals. Dinner music for a pack of hungry cannibals. Reckless night on board an ocean liner. Tobacco auctioneer. In an 18th century drawing room. The girl at the typewriter. Siberian sleigh ride. War dance for wooden Indians. Bumpy weather in Newark at an Arabian house party. You can see how the titles on Influential Piano Plot were very much influenced. I love coming up with titles for instrumentals, especially if you can try to say to yourself, what does this sound like the soundtrack to? What scene is
yeah.
this? It's really great fun. But that in that documentary, first you see he's this great successful band leader who's on like TV programs, conducting band stuff, and he just abandoned all of it to basically invent synthesizers. He's got these albums called Soothing Sounds for Baby that are like synthesizers that he invented, and they're very kind of droning but beautiful music that you can hear. Oh my God, was Kraftwerk into this? And it's like 1961.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so the documentary kind of pieces together his life. You can only see it on Vimeo. You pay like $4 and then you watch it on Vimeo. That's the only place it is.
I'm totally
But
fine with that. As long as it's not on Amazon, then I'm okay.
yeah, Vimeo, yeah, it probably goes to like the Raymond Scott archives, who I've actually met now. So yeah, but that you'll love that movie. It's just what a life, and the music that he made, and you'll recognize some of it just if you
Yeah.
ever watched cartoons.
No, yeah, no doubt I will. No, that sounds fascinating. I'll definitely check that out. I have
Yeah.
bookmarked it, so it's a good tip.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So going back into I want to creep my way through the history to get to the latest record. So when you got Berit Ulseth, was that the first
Mhm.
time that you had like a permanent singer for the Claudettes as
Yeah,
such?
yeah. The previous one, Yana was with us for a short while, and we did the one album, and she did some touring with us. Danced more than she sang. But Barrett, yeah, I met her in Chicago. I'd been writing a lot. I wanted to have a singer, and a drummer that I knew in Chicago who played with us for a bit brought her to the band. He was in a country band with her, and he said she sings backup, but every once in a while she just busts out. And he said she's an amazing singer, and she was. I mean, she's just got this gorgeous voice, and especially with ballads. That's why that Sundays song, I thought I wouldn't bring that song to anybody, just anybody, because that's such a gorgeous melody and performance. And I thought our performance was the definitive one. If you hear it on that, it's called the Claudettes Live in the Piano Room. It's I think we called it Pull Closer to Me, Live in the Piano Room. Yeah, there's the seven songs here have the Pink Floyd mashup, the Sundays, and the Ruby and the Romantics. Oh, and T-Rex, Cosmic Dancer.
Yes, I did read that you'd covered that, which was also interesting for me because there was a track on the latest album where I thought like, oh, there's just a little hint of sort of like space rock or something like that. So then when I read that you'd done T-Rex before, I thought, okay, this is starting to piece together for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, T-Rex also, I mean, it's like looking forward, but also there's lots of blues in it. I mean, he
Yeah,
was really like a kind of a grimy blues player, and what an interesting character he was. Mark
definitely an
Bolan.
interesting character. Yeah. So what was the sort of turning point that you decided, right, okay, I want this band to be fronted by a singer?
It was just during some off time, just starting to write, and I felt I wanted a female singer. I wanted vocals in that range, and I also really, to be honest, I thought it's a little boring to look up on the stage and see just a bunch of dudes, and I thought girls like girl singers and guys like girl singers. It's just everyone, and at that time I met Barrett and was bowled over by her voice. So I just got really, there's this great quote I like to trot out that was in this Nat Hentoff book, this jazz critic who interviewed Duke Ellington, and some inane interviewer asked him, how did you score all those chart hits? And he said, I looked around at any given time at the people I had in my band, and I said, what do these people do well? And, it's really like if you have a drummer who's not very good at a rumba, but you have a rumba in your repertoire, just can't just scrap the rumba, play what the person does well. The way to have a good band is to play to the strengths of everyone who happens to be in your band at that time.
I mean, it,
You know?
it totally makes sense. Just like any kind of team in general, if you're working in a company, you don't want to have everybody all have the same personality types. You want to have things that complement each other for like a whole that works.
Right. And it's good to have a mission and try to get your team to do that mission, but it's probably a better recipe for success to look at your team and ask, what do these people do well? If
Yeah.
that's something that will be a success for you. I mean, in our case, I learned pretty quickly Berit's best vocal range, what kind of phrases she felt comfortable and cocky with, and which ones not at all. Some singers hate to hang out on a unison, to hold the root for a long note is very hard for some singers. It's like, and other singers like a lot of movement, a lot of big leaps. You just learn that where are their strengths and where's their comfort zone and what do you
Yeah.
think they want to do. And sometimes you can ask them, and other times you can just listen and experiment. And that's what I did with her. We got very prolific. We were on an incredible roll when COVID came. The High Times in the Dark record. So Ted Hutt is an Englishman who's been in LA for years. He was in Flogging Molly.
Hmm.
He was a founding member of Flogging Molly, and he's produced them and Dropkick Murphys, but also Violent Femmes and all these American groups that he's been doing since he's been here. But he came out and produced High Times in the Dark with us, and it was so successful musically. We just got on such a roll. The recording went great, and then it was slated for April 2020, which was exactly when COVID really became like understood to be here for a while. It's not. I
Yeah.
remember you might remember at first they were saying like this will probably be gone next week. It just sweeps through, it's gone, and it just wasn't.
Yeah. It was such a crazy time. I was living in Prague at the time.
Oh, I
And
read that. I read your bio. I was in the Czech Republic not long ago. That's cool. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it was a great place to be. It was I think Czech Republic because it once it got into Europe, Italy was the place that had the biggest impact first of all. And unfortunately, in terms of the connection to Czech Republic, what the Czechs like to do is to go off to Italy to ski. So apparently there was this particular cohort of people that went off to Italy to ski, and they unfortunately brought back COVID in large numbers. So I was kind of, yeah, I was fortunate enough because I'd wanted to move to Germany. So I managed to get to Germany in the midst of COVID, which was a bit crazy. But yeah, I can remember, the reports of different people in different places, whether it was the UK or America. It's like everybody suffered their own particular set of restrictions during that time.
Yeah, I mean, so we had a tour booked. Do you know is it called the 101 Club in London? The 100 Club? There's a well-known bar there that has like a basement club, and they say Paul McCartney has played down there, and it's like the thing they put in their bio. But we had a good UK and Europe tour booking. We had this animated video for The Sun Will Fool You, this song I love that took a year and a half for these illustrators to do, and it got in film festivals all over the world, like on 5 continents, and all of it came crashing down. Everything you just said. And I had a producer I had brought in and paid. I also had got signed to Delmark Records, the home of Magic Sam, Otis Rush, and Junior Wells, to put out my own record. And I had a producer who came in, who's a guy I know from Brooklyn, but he lives in Cognac. And he came into the US and we produced that. And that was slated for August 2020, which, as you also know, was not not out of the woods yet by any stretch. So that was the most I ever invested in myself, was the year 2020. 2 albums with producers and a major video that was like a real work of art. And it just, so I just like to say, I just basically wanted to sit in the closet in the dark for a while.
Oh, it's absolutely brutal, man.
I had people checking on me because they knew in particular that this is affecting everyone, but they knew for me, and what felt like a pivotal time and a really exciting time was just, but and after that I got on a songwriting. I couldn't write songs for a long. Everyone was like, well, at least there's a lot to write about now, and I just was way too depressed, and I did
Yeah.
it was not my impulse at that time to like, how am I going to put this into words? No one wants to hear that.
So if I've got the timeline right then, so it was a little bit after that you ended up doing the score for the TV series The Bear. Is that right?
Actually, the first season, I mean, I only did a little in season 1. I did a lot in season 2. So what are we? So that was, I guess, probably 2024, 2023, maybe was the season 2, 3, 4, 5. Um, yeah, so you're right. It wasn't long after that. We in between was The Claudettes Go Out, which was actually the title actually meant it was what I thought was going to be the last Claudettes album. It wasn't like some people thought it meant like, hey, we finally get to leave our homes, but it was more like, like a swan song, you
Yeah.
know. That's what I thought at the time. It just felt like, okay, well, we got these songs we'd written. Well, let's record these and, move on. But I still got my piano downstairs, so songs keep coming, which is good. And please, no more pandemics for
Oh,
my lifetime.
absolutely. No, for sure.
But yeah, so yeah, but the bear came about because I don't know if you want to talk about that at this moment or not.
Sure,
The
we can.
bear.
Why not? As long as you don't mind me like still keeping you for a little while, because I have
Oh
a
no,
few
I
more
don't.
questions to
No,
go.
no,
Cool.
that's great.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen I've
well,
seen a bit of the bear, and I thought it was very compelling. So yeah, I don't specifically remember the music, but I'm sure that I felt that it fit in because it must have added to the whole atmosphere because it is a very intense, sort of
yeah,
emotionally gripping series.
yeah. Well, season one, my partner JQ, who I had a band called Them Versus Them with, it was kind of like a synth rock band, like kind of dance music played all by live instruments with a lot of synths. But he and I have always just kept working on music together. And he's a native Chicago, and I'm from the East Coast, but I've been here for a long time. And but he had an old friend who was now one of the producers on this new show, The Bear, and asked Jay to just contribute a little bit of music. And then JQ realized that what they were asking for was sort of out of his comfort zone of composing. He's more of like a producing and beats and sort of can go around the keyboard a little bit, but he sings it. But he needed me for that. He felt to deliver what they wanted. So I did some, and then they wanted us to do a lot more for season two, and we ended up doing a lot. That's the season they did the most original scoring. Since then, since the show's gotten very successful, they've had a big budget and they've done a lot of soundtrack instead. It's all Wilco and AC/DC and Genesis and the beat, or as we call it, the English beat.
Yeah.
And did they call them the English beat in England?
No, I don't think so. This does ring a bell. It's like the band Suede. They had to rename themselves London Suede because there was a
Oh,
jazz singer called
yes.
Suede in the US.
Right. Or the Mission UK.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was a kid, I loved Sisters of Mercy and all that stuff. So I tried to buy Sisters of Mercy tickets in Chicago, and it sold out in like half a second. I hate this world. Why is that I can't buy a ticket because it's bought up by robots and then sold at a
Oh,
higher
right.
price?
Oh, God. Yeah, I know. Absolutely.
But they really have moved now into really just almost exclusively soundtrack. We've done very little the last couple seasons. They just don't have any bit that's original new scoring is us, but they've had almost none. It's just they might have a new Trent Reznor arrangement of something he previously wrote, but that's not new scoring for the show.
Mm,
It's a previous composition. But that's been really cool. When we first were writing to it, we didn't know the show was even going to get picked up, let alone become a giant hit.
yeah.
So we want to do a lot more. I'm going to his house tomorrow, JQ. We're doing a score for a podcast on iHeartRadio. Is that just an American thing, iHeartRadio, or does that ring a bell?
Doesn't ring a bell
It's
with
just like
me.
a sort of like it's like an online radio syndicate, and they just it's a huge home of podcasts here. Actually,
Cool.
iHeartRadio is, and this woman is doing a podcast about her brother who died of cancer, and it's about their whole like getting together once they discovered he had a fatal diagnosis and sort of laughing and crying about memories and nostalgia. It's not just doom and gloom. I think that he was a funny great guy, and it's just their conversations and reminiscences and stuff. And so that's an interesting project to work on the music for, because
Yeah,
they
definitely.
sent us like 8 adjectives about industrious, devastated, giddy, what like that, and just coming up with the music for it, and then discussing what's too busy, what's too ornate, what needs to be more stripped down. And so that I hope we'll do more and more of that. I love doing that stuff. It's
That's
so
a
good.
that's a cool concept as well in terms of a brief. I like that idea of throwing out a bunch of adjectives and going take those as your parameters.
Yeah, that's the title of each piece, and make it something, of course it's all instrumental. This is where our skill sets and our hardware and everything all are a good match for each other. JQ has MIDI keyboards, two big monitors, a lot of storage, and he's got the state-of-the-art Logic sound bank. And we work in Logic. And we were all first working in Pro Tools and Sansamp and stuff 20 some years ago, and the sounds were awful. Like they just hurt your ears, Sansamp organ or Sansamp like amp distortion, just so terrible. And now it's like you've got to feel sorry for the cellists of the world. It's like you can, I mean, he for him to call up this one set of orchestral sounds takes like many minutes of loading, and it's like several terabytes
Yeah.
just for these, like, not that many sounds. They're really dense, really well recorded sounds, and I don't really know where sampling and algorithmic begins and ends. I know some sounds are created not with sampling. There are
Oh,
certain
okay.
there are certain pedals, like emulations of famous guitar pedals, that are done algorithmically. They're done like scientifically. It's almost like digitally, like with a formula rather than like you might sample a piano. So I think that goes with sounds too. Some of them are built different ways, but these sounds that we've got for everything from analog synths to acoustic instruments and percussion are so good. They're
Yeah.
so hi-fi, and so it's a great tool to have, to be able to just follow those adjectives and try to, but they also want us to be repetitive. The first
Mm.
criticism they had was, this one has like kind of like cheesy old organ, and then this one has like pizzicato strings, and then this one has just acoustic piano, and it's like you got to kind of pick a sound territory and stick to that. Like
Yeah.
across the show they want to, so that's where we've had to go back to the drawing board sometime. But that's a drawing board I like, though. It's all fun, it's all really good. If you can
Yeah,
get money, if you
absolutely.
can get paid to do that, that's just, it's like being a kid and playing with toys, and now you're an adult and you're doing it.
Well,
Doing it
absolutely.
right.
Well, I do. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions on that sort of the financial side of things, but I won't get into them just yet with you. So going back into the history a little bit. So around about this time during the pandemic, or hopefully sort of getting into the post-pandemic period, you lost your singer. How did that tie into your plans anyway, that you wanted the last or the previous album to be a swan song?
She only told us she was leaving after we had finished that and done some shows. It came out in like October, and I think in December she told me that he was gonna move on. She basically was not wanting to drive around in a van anymore, and she wanted to have a family. And I had basically, completely kidnapped her for years, and with practices and tours and recordings. And now she lives in Minneapolis. But so we did finish that album with her. We didn't get to tour too much. We actually toured quite a bit leading up to the release of the album, and then it came out, and then she went away. So we didn't do that one quite right. You're supposed to put the album out and then do all the touring. We kind of had it backwards, but life is like that. So then I was still writing, and a guy called me on the phone that I only knew a little bit, and he said, "Do you know Rachel Williams?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, she sang with me for a bit. He has a cover band that's very, very successful, that travels around a lot and plays casinos and stuff." And she briefly was singing, did some singing with him. And he said, not only is she fantastic and great on stage, but she's a huge Claudettes fan.
Oh, wow.
And he showed me, he directed me to a post she'd made upon seeing us, I think earlier that year. And it was like, 4 paragraphs or something about the band, and about her feeling about the songs and the singing and the musicians. And so I got her number and called her. And speaking of COVID, she had COVID when I called her. She's like, "I don't usually sound like this." Um, but so then she started coming over, and we just did what I think is the right thing to do first, which was not band practices anytime soon, but just playing around the piano and singing and talking and considering a few cover songs that would be good to just get to play together. Like she sang a Ann Peebles song, and Aretha. She sang Aretha really great. I mean, here's like a 6 foot white girl from Texas, like hailing Aretha. Like I usually would say, like, let's steer clear. That's not gonna fly. But I've sicked her on X-Ray Specs since then, and we do an X-Ray Specs song. We do a Peaches song.
Oh, great.
Um,
I just saw Peaches play live the other week in Glasgow. She was amazing.
do you know Rock Show? Rock Show. This ain't the fucking talk show. It's pretty bluesy. Da-ba-da-ba-da, da-ba-da-ba-da, da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da, da-ba-da-ba-da, da-ba-da-ba-da, da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da. Rock show.
I don't
It's
particularly remember.
Zach, our bass player, played it at a party, and I was like, "Oh my God, we have to do this song, Peaches Rock
Ah,
Show."
is that from the first album?
It's not new. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I
It's
think
it's
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 from
old.
it's
So
from
yeah.
the Teachers of Peaches. So I'm sure I will have heard it some way down the line.
Yeah. But even over the last couple of years, we've done a Big Mama Thornton song. I've had Rachel, and we did a Mose Allison song, but mostly Rachel and I. And now we're starting to write together. She
Mm.
started sending me some voice memos with single ideas, which I really like. I like, rather than, sometimes it's tough to get a complete song. It's good to be like, here's just one idea, and then start to work on it together and see where it could go. That's a great collaboration, and we're starting to do that now. But Garage Glamour was things I wrote when she first joined, and then over the following year or so, and we recorded it in 3 or 4 different sessions at 3 different studios, in fact. So and we recorded way more than we needed for an album. And then I just kind of came up with a playlist I thought worked as an album, and kept aside some songs that are great, but just I could not, when you're sequencing songs, it's like I cannot find a place for this song, like for I tried everything, So there's a few that just I couldn't find to play it, but so Rachel, yeah, Rachel was with us for has been with us for 3 years right now.
Mm.
We recorded Garage Glamour over like a year and a half at a few different studios. We just, whenever we were hot on 3 new songs, we just went and recorded them, as opposed to High Times in the Dark, where we just did in a week. We just went in the studio every day and recorded it, and then mixed right away. Right, and then it got mixed in LA right after that. But so this was different. But I'm happy to say I feel like, even though the styles vary and it was recorded in different sessions by different people, it sounds like one band to me.
Definitely. No, I
Yeah.
think that it makes a lot of sense when you describe the way it was put together, because I do think that going from track to track, it has a very satisfying variety, but it also feels cohesive as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
was
think so.
I was thinking too, talking about Rachel's performances, which are amazing. Like she's such an impressive singer, and I was sort of trying to think, like, if I was going to pick out one particular song for her vocal performances, there could be a few. I'd maybe pick out Whirlpool. I think like the way that she moves between registers on that song is particularly impressive. It's just like so smoothly. It's really impressive.
True, it's true, and she really came a long way. Like, I think she discovered it a little while after we started playing it. Did you ever hear the Wanda Jackson original? That's the only cover we've ever recorded.
No, I don't think I have heard the original. I don't remember it anyway.
Yeah, yeah, seek it out. It's a B-side. I mean, Wanda Jackson, right? The Fujiyama Mama and all that. So
Yeah.
they tried to paint her back in the very simple days of painting women into a corner, calling her the female Elvis.
Okay.
I don't hear it at all. But Wanda Jackson's version is quite a bit quicker and twangier, and she has an absolute country twang in her singing, but it's the same melody. It's a great melody. She was something, and I thought that Rachel would love it, and she did. I love in particular That Could Be Arranged,
Oh,
which
yeah. I really like
I
that
wrote
song as
that
well.
I wrote that after seeing like 2 TV series in a row that had like women making absolute fools of their criminal partners, just like just
Yeah.
absolutely, like how easy it is to like trick and deceive and defeat like testosterone driven partners. They're just so dumb.
Well, I was gonna pick that one out in terms of the lyrics. I think that's one of my favorites in terms of the lyrics, because it starts off um, very kind of playful, sort of flirtatious, and
Yeah.
then as it progresses, it's kind of like yeah, whatever the dynamic is between the two, it's like she's basically taking advantage of him and she's possibly going to kill him. And
Yeah, and
I liked
does.
the way that it went.
When we do it live, she strangles me to death at the end, and I fall down into my flutes and then my face is pressing flutes at the end. Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I did think I just had the idea of her doing a song of like a femme fatale, just easily duping her partner.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it was actually my uncle Steve who came up with the idea of. He said, when have I been taping all our calls? That would be deranged. Have I decided to take it all? That would be deranged. have I transferred all the money? What? No, no, honey, that would be deranged. You don't like that? Does that drink taste funny? You don't like it? Did I spike it? Or that would be deranged. Just come lie down, darling. You don't feel well.
Yeah, proper
Yeah.
gaslighting.
Yeah, but he had the idea of adding, which we did very late to when we were mixing, adding her speaking all those lines in addition to singing them. Because first it was just "Have I decided?" She was singing it, and then we have her also speaking it, which reminds me of when. I grew up fascinated with double nickels on the dime Minutemen, and they do a Steely Dan song. I think "Are You With Me, Doctor Wu?" Or is it like "Are You Something, Doctor Wu?" I don't remember. And the whole song is sung and spoken at the same time. Like there's
Mm.
two performances of it, like which kind of reminded me of that, which can be a really cool effect. And for some, it really helps the words come across too. I
Yep.
thought it would maybe clutter it up, but for somehow it actually really helps.
Mm.
Sometimes when there's so much music going on and there's high singing, it's just easy to hear it as music, but not really track the lyrics. I think the spoken part helps. It's almost like closed captions.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight. So from the point of view of the vocal melodies, were those all specifically written out along with the melodies of the other instrumentation?
Yeah, I mean, 50% of the songs that I write, I have chord changes, and then I also keep a journal just of words, of just lines, of just twists on ideas that I think would be great for a lyric, and then I'll see if I can apply anything I have in there, or just come up with what does this music sound like it wants to be about. And then other times I'll just hear like a single phrase in a melody, like Rachel's been sending me with her voice memos too, kind of a chorus line, just the centerpiece of the song, like a song idea spelled out in one line with a melody, like as the starting point.
Mm.
And I sometimes I think one way is better than the other, but there's all kinds of counter examples of what I think becomes a really strong song. And when I think back to the origins, I mean, sometimes it's just a single lyric idea with a melody, and sometimes it's just once I do chords, then go, okay, what's an available melody that works across this kind of either chord change, whether it's simple or Byzantine. I can. It's so much fun for me to look at I'm looking down now because I'm looking at this imaginary piano, and I'm thinking about like looking at the notes available that are common to these different chords. You know how fun that is when you go to from one change to another, one chord to another, thinking, what are my available notes to go to here, and what does that
Mm.
sound like? And it's sort of slow and scientific, but so I do sometimes ask her. I'll go, this melody, is it too riffy? Does it sound, because it sound like a more like a riff on an instrument than a vocal melody. There's something. Sometimes they can be too riffy, and it's not. I don't, and it's fun to listen to great songs with great melodies, and then find them on an instrument, and
Mm.
for that to have occurred to you to play that on your instrument. It might not have, or it might be so comfortable on the guitar or the piano to play it that it's like it's common sense almost.
So there's this guitarist, Tom Fountainhead, and he one of the things he does just as kind of like a little side quest is he does these YouTube videos where he records pop songs, but he does he plays along to pop songs, but he creates a guitar version of a pop melody. So he's got this Ariana Grande song. I can't remember which one it is, but it's like a few of her songs are guilty pleasures for me, and he does her song on guitar, and it sounds really great. So I wouldn't necessarily have thought of taking vocal melodies and playing them instrumentally, but that could be a very interesting exercise to do to sort of become more aware of the possibilities of
Maybe,
vocal
yeah, maybe it
melodies.
will sharpen up your melodicizing or something, if you
Yeah.
if you turned it into something with your fingers. The recording you're talking about, is it fleshed out with like bass and drums and keyboard stuff, or is it just simply like single guitar, like
I think it's
solo
just it's
guitar?
just him. He just does it on
Oh,
guitar, and I think if I remember right, he's got these particular guitars which are fretless,
oh, okay.
just for
Oh, so,
extra levels of difficulty and complexity.
and maybe can be better at approximating the voice too.
Yeah, it could well be. So on the melodic side on the latest record, I would say one of the my favorite songs in terms of the music, and this is probably where the answer to this question will be where you'll leap well beyond my understandings of music theory. But Winter Came, I love for the various different progressions. And when I listen to this, I think I think there's modulation going on in here, but that's about as far as I can get. Can you describe a bit what's going on musically on that song and how you put that together?
Um, it started with a sentence I said out loud to John Primer, who actually is the one who sang on the "You Are My Whole World" with us. We were going to that session, and he came to pick me up in his truck, and I hadn't seen him in like 4 months, and I think it was like November or something, and I had last seen him in August or July. And when he pulled up, I went to get in his car, and I said, "Ah, winter came while you were gone, man," because he was off on touring. And like last time I'd seen him, it was like 85, and then all of a sudden it was like 28 or something, and gusty. I'm speaking Fahrenheit here. And I just said to myself, that's a pretty good lyric. Like, what if there was a narrator who was just livid at a former partner who seemed to suggest they get back together after really mistreating her, like that, like you have some fucking nerve,
Yeah.
like while you were off doing things and like abandoning me, now you're ready to get back into it. And like I just went through a lot, and like it's an incredible, just the gall of it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty easy to write the words to it. That one, I'm quite sure I wrote all the words to, and then tried to find some music that was melancholy but forceful. And the rhythm that occurred to me as I started playing was absolutely "Let's Stay Together." Al Green, ba-ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, all on the floor tom. So I have demos of everything. My demos, I always say, are under lock and key because they must not get out into the world, because they have me singing in falsetto where she's going to be singing, and it's very Muppety. It's really like do you know R. Stevie Moore? Is there someone named R. Stevie Moore? There's this lo-fi artist who Berit told me that my demos reminded her of. I think it's something
Oh,
just like that.
yeah.
Is there some? Yeah.
R. Stevie Moore. I'd never heard of him before, but
I think he's like an icon, an underground icon, and I think his songs sound a little bit like my demos, maybe sort of like a male falsetto kind of Muppety voice. What I mean?
interesting. All right. I'll have to save that as well and check him out later.
Yeah, I can't vouch for it. I think I haven't listened to it in years. I just remember that comparison. So I think I then just Ouija boarded on the piano. Like, so I did have music theory. I was once very good at sight singing. And music theory, you do sight singing where they bring you the music and you've got to sing it just looking at the music on the staff paper. And then
Yeah.
conversely, they'll sing you something and you have to write it out. I was really good at that, and I been writing songs a long time and writing it on paper. But when I'm writing songs, I like to deliberately slightly lobotomize myself and do not think that way, and just really move my hands around the piano and just see where they want to go. And there's such a landscape on the piano that I feel like almost like let my hands lead over my mind, and so I will sometimes look back at some chord changes I wrote, and God, I don't know, kind of analyze them and go, that's really kind of out there, or that's really
Yeah.
clever. And I certainly didn't. I'm not a jazz player or thinker. I'm also not good at transposing. If I play something in G and someone wants me to play it in G flat, like forget about it. Like I could do it eventually, but
Yep.
I can't like do it on the fly. Like all these great players I play with can do it on the fly, and I cannot. My brain just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I felt much better after reading this Irving Berlin biography where he only could play in one key, and he had a thing invented for him that when he would play in the key he could play in, he could move this apparatus around on the piano and it would actually strike different strings, and he could
Oh,
play in
wow.
C but have it sound in F sharp. And
Yeah.
he was like very rudimentary. The person that wrote like the most pop hits ever was an incredibly rudimentary musician, and I sort of operate that way a lot of the times, where I just really just move my hands around and start thinking and finding things, but I do not think in terms of the stuff I know. I sort of decided to learn it so I could forget it.
I think I mean, that must be a valuable but not automatic skill to be able to take theory that you've learned and then not consciously be stuck on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do, and I think that there's a real benefit of that. But other times, if I'm not in the zone, then I feel really inept sometimes, because I feel sort of like a caveman. But And also, a lot of times I think I need to simplify more. Like every time we do a cover song, I'm struck by how simple it is, and I'm
Mm,
like, why are my songs so complicated, but they just feel natural to me. And I'm certainly not trying to be showy or ostentatious, or I'm not trying to impress anybody. All I really do care about is the humor or the heart of the song, or the anger of the song.
which, goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning, that it's the feeling and the authenticity of it. So you can be inspired by people that have a more simplistic style, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's true for you.
Yeah, yeah, right. What's true for you is the only thing that matters, right? And it's
Yeah.
like my uncle, like Steve, like he and I agree that most blues since the 70s is not worth hearing because everybody's regurgitating something someone else. Not only are they regurgitating something someone else did, but they're not that person. It's not going to be as good. If
Yeah.
you're trying to do Elmore James, you're trying to do John Lee Hooker, you're trying to do Charlie Parker, you could go on and on with your jazz blues. Like I guess you could spend your whole life like learning that imitation, and maybe you'll even make a lot of money off of it. Or you
Mm.
could be a Stevie Ray clone, or you could say Stevie Ray was into Jimi Hendrix and Albert King, you know. But certainly, if you learn and listen to a lot of music and then you allow yourself to fully express yourself, that's where you can change the course of music and your own life and make good stuff that reaches people.
Yeah.
But
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 also,
yeah.
unfortunately, at the same time, have a lot of people say that what you're doing is garbage.
Yeah. Yes, yes, I know. And also just end up dying and then being discovered later.
Well, indeed. Well, so on that topic, I wanted to get back to something that we touched on when you were talking about getting paid for doing scores. So as much as it always feels like a bit of a vulgar topic to bring up, but from your point of view as a professional musician of many years, how reliable is being a musician or working in music as a sustainable source of income?
Just about the worst choice I think you could make. If you want to be relaxed about seeing your bank account go the way it's supposed to go. I had many years of being a freelance writer, as I mentioned, like doing cover copy. I wrote for a music catalog called Collector's Choice Music, where my job was basically take a full piece of paper full of text and condense it to 3.5 sentences that will sell the record. And Collector's Choice Music did not specialize in new releases by new artists. It specialized in box sets, archival releases, anniversary reissues that have a disc of previously unreleased takes and things like that. Everything from rockabilly, western swing, vintage pop, jazz, blues, R&B. So it was really for record collectors. And so my job was to take the vendor sell sheet that was just a big mess of clunky text and condense it to 3.5 sentences telling the record collector why they need this edition, and having a certain voice across the catalog from one record collector to another, like dispense with drab biographical information because you take it that this reader knows who Grant Green is, and you
Yep.
don't have to like say Grant Green was born in Mississippi. Like, no. What? Yes, and I know this album. Why do I want this edition? Because of course the famous Village Vanguard performance. Well, this is a whole extra rehearsal tape that was never been released before that's on this package, that kind of thing. So I had that job writing for that for 25 years for this catalog.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I could be in my passenger seat and have someone else in the band driving, and I could be making $52 an hour typing in there. So
Mm.
about 20 hours a week of that writing, I was making about $1,000 a week home or on the road just with writing. And it was somewhere between mildly enjoyable and monotonous, one step above data entry, it felt like sometimes,
Mm.
just endless. When we got in this bad van accident in my band, I was writing about Barry White when we got in the accident. When I woke up, my laptop was in 6,000 pieces,
Fuck.
but that job there allowed me to, hey, we need a radio promotion. We need to pay for radio promotion. We need a music video. We want to press vinyl. Like I just paid for it because I just had my
Mm.
like I had my my writing side covered my music side, so I could break even with music and be making money with that. Well, like all freelance work, it's gone away now. There is no freelance writing, in that realm. At least for me, I lost that job. They don't do it. They don't mail the catalog, and I think they just crib the notes from Amazon or something. They don't have anyone writing, so that's sad. That's the world we're in. So.
When was it that job went away?
I had that job from basically the year 2000 until the summer of 2024.
Right. Okay.
Pretty amazing. I mean, the guy
Yeah.
who started this catalog is kind of a genius. He keeps lists of record lovers, and they sell vinyl, they sell CDs, and they mail a catalog, and it's been in existence for decades. It's pretty cool. You have to be, and he was really a pioneer, I think, that way in just keeping lists, like how Spotify and Apple Music, everyone has all of our information. Well, he collected information on record buyers back then, and was able to. He also yelled at me at times when I was writing the copy. He said, "Your passion for some music and lack of passion for others is showing. You have to be equally enthusiastic for everything you're writing about." Because he said he loves Billie Holiday, but she doesn't sell. I don't know why. Ella Fitzgerald sells. Billy doesn't. And he had that, like he had 1,000 of those. He would also license a record that was out of print. He would ask me, if you ever notice a record's out of print and it's been out of print, let me know. Because he would license that record for 1 year and have his own label with the catalog too. And
Wow. Okay.
everything from 50s pop to obscure 90s metal. I mean, everything,
Yeah.
So now that that's gone, I said I have to grow up and I'm just going to make all my money through music. Like I've got a house, I've got a kid, and I've got what you'd call a sugar mama, where I've got a wife with a real job. And her benefit from me is that, like, occasionally she gets to go to places like Beirut and Japan with me when I go playing music, so I earn my keep to a degree, but I do need to be making more money for us, for eventual, needs.
Do you think that that's going to make a difference to how you approach making music, that you've got a different dynamic in terms of where money's coming from or where you're expecting money to come from?
Not really, because I'm a really hard worker. I practice all the time trying to get better, and I try to, but it could, in that, like, many people have told me you have to move to Nashville or you have to move to LA and you got to schmooze with the people. Like, if you want more scoring work, you should be around I briefly joined the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and they have events, and it's the same with blues. I mean, blues is a club. I'm going to the Blues Music Awards on Wednesday. I have a Delmark album of my own, a live in studio, all acoustic, all solo piano album that's up for best acoustic album of the Blues Music Awards, and that's great. But, like, generally, I'm not really like a lifer in blues. I've played with great people, and I know a lot of those people, but I'm also a punk rock kid still, and I'm a little bewildering. I think I've even been told that I'm confusing as a blues artist, because I'm sort of in the scene, sort of not, and even on my blues records, there's some weirdo stuff on there. There's gonna be, so I don't have any interest in. My father has always said, taking more of the approach of, like, here's what people want. Why not make that thing that they want? It's like marketing 101,
Yeah.
Find out what the people want and give it to them. And I'm on the one hand very, very lucky that I have a wife, and I had supportive parents who have made sure that I wasn't going to lose the roof over my head. And I've never felt the need to do music that is not of great interest to me. Lucky, I know plenty of blues players who feel the need to have 15 gigs a month because they have a spouse and a child, and they need that $100 at a time, and the only way to do it is to maximize the number of gigs you have. And I've done long tours. I've done many 35-day tours. And I've done 140 shows in a year. I remember counting once, but I do less and less now. And I'm not a road dog, but I played 6 weeks in Europe 2 falls ago with a blues group playing piano. And so I'm saying yes to more things now. I just went to Europe, to France and Belgium with one blues artist. I'm going down south to Biloxi, Clarksdale, and Memphis with another one. And then the Claudettes just did 2 shows. I'm doing 2 weeks in Portugal, Spain, France, and Germany in June and July. So I'm lucky in that, like, there's not a ton of fully qualified blues piano players, and I live in Chicago. So I get enough people asking me that I can somewhat pick and choose. I'm choosing more now than I did before. I used to have just a it's a whole raft of excuses, yeah. Because I didn't want to. When I had that freelance writing gig, I didn't have to say yes to all
Yeah.
that stuff. And it could be worse. I mean, I don't particularly care to be up there like soloing on piano for 3 hours. Like it's just kind of, I don't know, it's like a swarm of bees or something, I don't, it's a little much for me. I'm much more song and heart oriented, as I said, than I am like my biggest criticism of seeing a group is someone will say, "How was that show you saw?" I go, "It's musicians' music. It's like a bunch of guys up on stage showing you how good they are at music. It's so boring. I don't care
Yeah.
about that. That's why I don't really go out to see jazz very often. I'm sure there's stuff that's hot shit, but I don't really to go see someone show me their music education on their instrument for 90 minutes. Isn't it boring? I don't, I don't get it myself.
No, I can totally relate to that. I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm mindful that it's going on a bit. Have you got time for a couple more questions?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I had this part blocked off. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is today and tomorrow are my free days in between a complete nutty schedule through May 11th. So, sure
All
thing.
right,
Yeah. I'm
cool.
enjoying it myself.
Good. Well, I wanted to ask you about Chicago Plays the Stones. How did that come together, and what was that like to end up working with Keith Richards and Mick Jagger?
Well, I'll skip right to the end and say I'm on tracks with those people, but I was not in the same room as those people, or the same
Ah, okay.
continent, for the same side of the Atlantic. For them, they, like many, did same thing for Johnny Winter and Derek Trucks, and others that. So those are Larry Scholar productions. I just was in France and Belgium with Matthew Scholar, who's a great harmonica player and friend and singer and songwriter of mine, friend of mine. His older brother Larry has only produced a handful of records, and they've all gotten Grammy nominations. He's very, very good, and he has good concepts. And I did two called the Chicago Blues: A Living History that had a lot of Chicago's greatest blues artists, and I'm in the band in it. I play piano. There's the guitar player, bass, and drums. But Billy Boy Arnold is in it, who's now in his 90s. He gave Bo Diddley his name and played harmonica on all his original chess sessions. And
Wow.
he has great 50 singles of his own. He took a lesson from Sonny Boy Williamson in the 40s, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Billy Boy Harold, yeah. And John Primer and Little Ed. I mean, not Little Ed. He's not on the John Primer, Carlos Johnson. So there's great blues compilations not compilations, records that we made. And then Larry had the concept of Chicago Plays the Stones, which is basically, turning the tables because the Stones were obsessed with Chicago blues and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and so they made their music starting with recording like Little Red Rooster and things like that,
Yeah.
and then they come to visit, Chess Records in Chicago, and the mythical story of them seeing Muddy Waters painting a ceiling, which might or might not really be true. But so Larry had the idea, well, what if Chicago blues players play Stones songs, but play it like they're Chicago, like play it like they do, like Chicago blues musicians? It was an interesting concept, and it did really well. Got a lot. I was offered to take part in the touring entity of that band, but I didn't. I didn't want to break up other stuff I was doing,
Mm.
so I toured with it. But yeah, so in the studio, I was there with Bob Margolin and John Primer and Kenny Smith. So Kenny Smith's dad was Muddy Waters' longtime drummer, Willie Big Eye Smith. Kenny Beady Eye Smith. He's his son. He's one of the greatest blues drummers alive. We've all known him since he was very young. Bob Margolin played in the Muddy Waters band. John Primer played in the Muddy Waters band. So we all, and Billy Flynn, all these great Chicago or not necessarily living in Chicago, but Chicago blues as a genre,
Yep.
greats that are alive played. And then Larry got Gary Clark Jr., Shamika Copeland, so Buddy Guy. So twice now I've been on blues records with Buddy Guy without being in the studio with him. I've been
Mm.
on the stage with him many times because I used to play his club, and he would come up and clown around with Junior when I was playing with Junior. And when you play at Buddy, there's a good chance he's in the room drinking cognac, and he might come up on stage and kind of cavort, but none of those other people was I in a room with. I've recorded. I mean, I did have an interesting face to face with Van Morrison in Europe, but those other ones that we just mentioned, yeah, that I got to hear the track like everyone else did, like when it came out.
As soon as you said that, I thought, oh, of course, that makes perfect sense. Because even at a much lower level than the Rolling Stones, I've interviewed plenty of people where they were putting together um, an album, and a lot of stuff was done remotely. So yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
how did you end up crossing paths with Van Morrison?
He was a massive Junior Wells fan, and so we played in Newport, South Wales.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to
and
I used to live in Cardiff, so I was pretty
oh,
close to there.
so there is a theater that is in a complex that's also an inn and has like a piano bar in the downstairs in Newport, South Wales. It was one of those great gigs where I played and stayed in the same building. It was, how those, it's so great when you can just go up to your room in between
Yeah.
sets if you want, and we got word that Van Morrison was going to drive like, an hour or more to come and see the show. And he came up on stage and sang a little bit, and then afterwards there was like a piano bar in the elsewhere in the complex, and there's a picture of me at age 24 playing piano, and in the foreground are Van and Junior singing at each other while I'm playing piano. It's a great picture. But my mother told me, "Oh, you saw you met Van Morrison? I just read an article about him. I read that he's stopped drinking," and I cut her off right there. I said, "He did not stop drinking. No. He was sloshing white wine everywhere, and he called me that bloke over there pounding on the piano." He was not a fan because, like I said, I grew up as a punk. I call myself a punk rock piano player because I do attack the thing. I shouldn't. I don't mean to, but I do. And he wanted to hear something a little bit more elegant than what I was laying down in where that picture was taken. But yeah, the guitar player at the time said, "Van Morrison just said we'll call you that bloke over there pounding on the piano."
Well, to be fair, I'm not sure if Van Morrison would have appreciated double nickel on the dime, or double nickels on the dime. So
I don't think he could have made it through. What was there, 6 sides on there? I don't think he could have made it to side 2. I like Van Morrison though. I like a lot of his music. I had Tupelo Honey. That was the record I had.
Yeah, I don't have anything against Van Morrison, but I just haven't really. I don't know his stuff that well. I think maybe the aura and the reputation of Van Morrison sort of like looms a bit too heavy for me. I haven't sort of just been able to listen to his music without all of that baggage.
Well, when you say you don't have anything against Van Morrison, I do. In recent years, as he's opened up his mouth and talked about, vaccines and
Oh, did
started
he?
shutting down music and face masks and stuff. He came out on what I felt like was the wrong side, but there you go.
I missed all of that. I just blithely carry on in ignorance. So getting back to the forthcoming album, you're going to be putting that out on Pravda Records. Have you worked with them before?
No, we actually were playing a show in Chicago last year, and Ken, who runs the label, was at the show because we were on a bill with Josh Caterer, who is the singer from the Smoking Popes. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah,
they.
I'm aware of the
Yeah,
Smoking Popes. Yeah.
yeah. He's a wonderful crooner, Josh. He's got such a nice voice, and the music is kind of like. It's a little Smithsy at times with his voice, but it's a lot more sort of driving and a little punky, and so we were on the bill with them, and Josh is on Pravda, and so their label was there selling records, and he gave me his card afterwards. Ken did, and said, "Hey, I really like the band. Do you have a record? It's gonna be," and we were already in the midst of recording, so we kind of looked at all options, which these days it's going to be fewer options than you want because everyone's going to look at your Spotify and YouTube and Instagram, and same thing with festivals. Like there's a concert series in Ann Arbor, Michigan called Sonic Lunch, and they have cool bands on there. And I thought we were a perfect fit. And the guy got back to me, said, "You are a perfect fit, but your Spotify numbers are not very good." And I'm like, have I really gotten to a world where they're going to imagine or foist on me a notion of a one-to-one relationship between Spotify
It's
numbers
terrible.
and
I mean,
ticket
that's
sales?
also no guarantee the other way as well. If the band has a large Spotify following, it doesn't mean a lot of people are going to turn up and see them live necessarily.
I just read an article about someone who played at Subterranean, a club here in Chicago, and sold 22 tickets, and they have like 1 million followers on Spotify. It can mean something,
Yep.
but you need to do some more research and find out what is this band in real life. Like, well,
Yep.
what are they touring? And I think it feels to some that press doesn't matter, that just followers matters, but I don't know. I think all of it matters, and I would like to have more numbers on those things. Spotify is particularly tough for us because as we're sitting here talking about how varied the album is, you're not supposed to be. You have to pick a genre and a subgenre. That's what you got. And
Yeah.
and if you're going to get on playlists that matter, that playlist has a name. Do you fit neatly under that name? And good luck figuring that out for us. And that's when Rachel first joined the band. She said, "Okay, my friends are asking me, what are we? Like, what kind of music do we play?" And I'm like, and I think she got frustrated, and we got frustrated with each other because it's like I can't answer that. And like then there was the idea we need to refine the music so it can fit like that.
Mm.
And I just simply, when you ask, like, do I consider, the economics of the situation creatively, like when coming up with the music, and I don't think I can. It's
Yep.
like I'm not up. I don't think I'm supercilious about it. I just like it's just not the way I operate. Maybe I would if I had a whole different life circumstance and I had to make enough for this month's mortgage payment,
Mm.
but I'm fortunate in that I don't. And that actually makes me feel like I have a responsibility to be very creatively honest and bold and not do anything to seem bold or striking, but to just, we're all weird. We're all weird. And if you express yourself all the way, the music's going to be a little weird, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like everyone is, someone once said, yeah, like about Junior Wells, they said, everyone's different than everyone else, but Junior's more different. Someone says something like that. And I feel like we're all more different, and so I don't know. I wish I could come up with the idea that it's just sure to get us a lot of followers or a lot of dollars. I don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of people that I talk to, I very often come up to this point of acknowledging, like, for me personally, as an appreciator of music, I like things which surprise me, but I also appreciate that from a marketing point of view, it's not necessarily going to be the thing that's easiest when it comes to having your music understood in terms of like how
Yeah.
it's going to be marketed. But there you go.
And on the other side of that coin, I always talking to the band, I say, if we come up with a song that is undeniably great and has its own kind of hook, even if it's not a perfectly crafted pop hook in some sort of classic sense, but the song is just that great, then it will do the work for us. Like if we're not
Mm.
where we want to be, then we're not good enough. I mean, I say that to myself all the time. It's like it's very easy to stay humble when some just person says you're the best piano player I've ever heard. I'll be like, uh-huh, because it's like there are geniuses all over the place. Like I am a punk rock piano player. I'm a masher. You don't know the half of it. Like the people that I shut off my computer when I see how good they are. Like I'm. It's so easy to be humble. All you have to do is look and listen all
Yeah.
around. Just back decades and currently. But if you're going to, but the one thing no one else can do is as trite as it sounds, tell your story, whether it's instrumentally or with lyrics,
Yeah.
if you can do that, but still, I feel like if we're going to get where we want to get, we just need to get better. So I practice and I encourage the band to practice a lot together because, you can feel great about a single sold out show like we had on Saturday night and people saying such nice things and look good, sounded good, but like we want to play a bigger room than that. Selling 170 tickets is nice, but it's a pretty small venue. It's
Yeah.
like we'd like to play bigger venues, and the way is it would be great to have a good marketing and good team and stuff, but really just it's a single song. It's like how many, I mean, one hit wonders are everywhere. There's like all you have to do is have one song that everyone not only knows but knows it's you, attaches your name to it. Then you can fill any place.
Well, what
You know?
popped into my head, Bjork, totally
Mhm.
singular
Yeah.
artist. I remember when It's Oh So Quiet came out, which I think was actually a cover of a very obscure song. I remember when I first heard that on the radio, and I thought, this is so bizarre. Like, that's never going to catch on. And that ended up being a huge hit, which I think is completely different to anything else that she's ever done. I mean, I
Yeah.
suppose it also can depend, like, acceptance of such variety can partly depend on whether people expect you to be versatile, or do they expect to
Right.
have
Yeah.
the same, like I'm sure it'd be if they were so inclined, it would be a lot more difficult for Oasis to do something very, very unusual than it is for Bjork to do something very unusual.
Yeah. And then yet, like the song most people know of Radiohead is Creep, and yet I'm not crazy about that song. And the stuff that I love of theirs is so creepy and inventive and wild,
Yeah.
like
Well, I
that.
mean, like
And
Creep is a million miles away from Kid A, for example.
yeah, Kid A's. I have a story that's way too long for right now about Kid A. But some of that, like, robot meets human, very, very creepy, beautiful, odd music of that is
Mm.
so cool. And yet, yeah, so there are bands that do have that one song. I mean, Squeeze, I think my wife and I both don't really care that much for Black Coffee in Bed or Tempted. But those are like the songs you're going to hear on the radio. If you just have the
Yeah.
main rock radio on, those are at the bottom of our favorite. And I know some people feel that way about Talking Heads too. Like Burning Down the House is not my favorite Talking Heads by at all. And there's so much great, inventive, like just kind of wacky stuff that they did. But that's, I guess, what I'm saying is like it would be really good to just come up with that one song that's just going to earn its place on the radio, if there is radio.
Indeed. So the album Garage Glamour is going to be out on the 5th of June, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
What formats is it going to come out on?
I mean, I have in my possession CD and vinyl, and the initial pressing they do black vinyl. Then, if/when it sells out, then they do color vinyl. We'll get to that then. That'll be fun. But that's what it's on. Yeah, and platforms.
And so, in terms of if people want to get physical copies, that'll be on your Bandcamp page, will it?
Oh, well, I think Pravda has an online store. It will be in record stores. I need to get a better understanding of the international scope of that. I don't know. I know. I mean, they're distributed. They will be in record stores. But to the extent that somebody in a London or Paris record store could walk in and get it, I don't know. Maybe it depends on how the record does, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the reach of it is. My Delmark solo album probably has more of a chance of being found overseas because Delmark is like an iconic label, and if there's a jazz and blues section, it might be in there. I've seen people like send me a photo from very far away, but they're holding up my album. That's cool. But it'll be record stores in Pravda. I'm sure mails internationally, and it'll. They also have a Bandcamp page that's sort of like a portal, where just they'll have Claudette singles and albums on there, and I think you can download in 5 formats or order a physical copy.
Nice.
I'm sure if anyone just Googles and of course, the all-consuming Amazon and everywhere else, but better left unsaid, as you say.
Indeed. And so you mentioned having had a sold-out show just recently. What shows have you got coming up in support of the album?
We're going to the East Coast. We're going all around the Midwest. We're going out west about I don't know, 1,000 miles west of here, and it's still being built. We're going to have a busier fall and busier August to December than we are until August, because I wasn't sure for a while when the record was coming out, and I didn't want to make the Claudettes go out mistake of having the shows be before the release. So I kept it pretty minimal. We had 2 shows in May. We're going to have 2 shows in June, just a few in July, and then it's gonna escalate after that. And I had to turn down some shows in Canada. Some of the economics are real right now, as I'm sure you're hearing from everybody, is you get an offer in Canada, we got an offer in France, and then I see what else I can get around it, and you do the numbers. And I'm not afraid of losing a little money, but I'm not going to go off and just lose thousands of dollars. And in Canada, I had already reached out to some other venues to surround the one kind of support gig when I looked carefully at the email, and the offer was in Canadian dollars, which was not good for getting. It's like, I think like 1,700 Canadian dollars is like 1,100 US dollars. It's like that stark, and that's a real volatility situation there. It's been going. I'm sure with the euro, it's the same. I mean, all currencies right now are just it's been spinning. So, in France, there was a venue I played a blues show. It's kind of an eclectic venue in Tournon. I don't know how to pronounce it. Tournon d'Agenais. It's like southwestern France, and beautiful venue. I love it. I played there twice in 2 different groups, and he reached out and wanted us. And the only things I could get, it's so hard to string things enough when you're adding lodging, travel, days off, advisable days to play and not play. It's bands are having a pretty hard time stringing it together. I think the 90s to early 2000s was like kind of a golden age. We didn't even really know, where you were able to just go out and string, travel costs and lodging and also turnouts were better. People, it wasn't even before COVID came, I was calling this a Netflix world. You didn't used to be able to summon any show or movie you ever wanted to see and just watch it. You'd have to go rent a copy, or there's just crap on TV and you'd go out, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's a pretty tough proposition right now. Luckily, again, no one in the band is a road dog and feeling compelled to just be on the road all the time. We're just taking it as it comes, and the number of shows per year has kind of gone down. But I'm aiming for the quality of the shows, the venues, to be better and better.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's I'm not playing all that many Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. You know, it's just we used to just go out. I would twice a year go to the East Coast and West Coast, and 10 days East Coast, 17 days West Coast. I don't. It's a huge undertaking to do it right now, and you've almost got to have play money. You've almost got to say it's going to be investment, where you're investing in it like you might invest in studio time. You know.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you money. I mean, that's generally what the word on the street is it will cost you money to tour. I mean, if you have hoodies, something you can't download, then you can make money on that, you know?
Yeah, I've interviewed more than one musician who said that basically we're like traveling t-shirt salesmen at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was nice. I brought my records with me on this trip to France and Belgium just now, and I think in like 4 shows, I basically sold out of what I brought. I didn't bring that many, but older people in France were buying blues vinyl records and blues CDs like that. But when you're going and playing like cool indie rock shows like that, people will just go like, "Oh yeah, I follow you on Spotify." Like, let me see the T-shirt. But like buying the record is the thing that really bewilders me is cassettes. The way that cassettes came back, and like
It's funny, yeah.
hit bands are selling cassettes, but someone just told me that they put like a code on there, like a download code on the cassette, because I don't think most of these, if it is kids or what I would call kids buying cassettes, I don't think they have cassette players almost ever. I think it's like a keepsake. It's like
Yeah, it is
yeah.
it is a good point because I guess I think a lot of people do that with Bandcamp where you buy a physical release and you get a download code as well. And I guess there are people that just want to have the vinyl or the cassette as just like a little icon that's sitting on the shelf and they'll listen to the digital version of it.
I get it with the vinyl, but did you ever consider your cassette a display piece? I mean, like
Not
it's
so
like
much, no, but
it
I mean
goes in a drawer. You know?
yeah, but then again, I've got a telephone, like an old telephone with the numbers going round,
Rotary.
which is
Yeah.
it's not plugged in, but I have it sitting in my hallway because I think it looks cool. Now I'm sure back in 1960s, no one would have ever thought like, yeah, just have one of them sitting on the mantelpiece. That'll look cool.
Right, right. Yeah. No, I was surprised about the cassette, that just as we're writing for that catalog to see, wait a second, your album's available in vinyl and cassette. Have we time warped? It's not like you skip the CD, you know, like that. But
Yeah,
interestingly, people seem to be buying CDs again. I've even read articles. People say there's somewhat of a comeback. People like the fact that it's compact,
yeah,
you know, it's digital, and you know, people of course are always asking, how can I support the band? It's always just come to the shows, buy the records there, or buy it from the label, or buy it from a store. You know, just
yeah.
anything but the word we won't say again, or the funny. You know, Mr. Pecker's Apoplexy was written about this Medium piece that Jeff Bezos wrote when he was at war with David Pecker's lawyer, who David Pecker was the publisher of the National Enquirer, rag, you know, newspaper, and back when I wrote it, it was kind of a hero and villain story, and now it's just 2 villains. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's kind of lost some of its zest.
Incidentally, I should just say, as you brought that song up, I really appreciate the fact that you rhyme "vex me" with apoplexy. I did appreciate that quite a lot.
Okay, yeah, there were some good. Oh, also varmint. Oh, garment and varmints are in there too, because that was a line lifted directly from this blackmail letter that Jeff Bezos received. Was you um, you penetrated said garment while you wore your wedding ring. Because apparently he had photos of a woman who wasn't this publisher of the National Enquirer possessed photos of Jeff Bezos with a woman who wasn't his wife, and he was trying to blackmail him to like retract some statement he made about Trump. It was just this whole thing, and it was so ridiculous. And at the time, it was funny because Bezos, rather than submit to blackmail, he just published the letter in its entirety, the lawyer's letter, and then just like joked about it and stuff. And then, not a year after that, he was just contributing to the campaign. It's just, I can't believe how they've fallen in line here, and just like whatever's best for the bottom line wins. Period.
Yeah.
Disappointing, but
Indeed, it is. Well, I'm sorry that we've ended with talking about Jeff Bezos, but it was a really, really enjoyable
Until
chat.
then, this
So
has been really good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Hey, I knew after I read your bio, I mean, I could be interviewing you. My sister lived in London. She lived in Berlin. She lives in New York City now. But I'm so envious of the idea that you could just decide to travel to or even move to all these places within Europe and the UK. Because if I did something similar with the similar mileage here, we'd be talking about Ohio, Indiana, and Iowa.
I know the
I'm
scale
so,
is a completely different story. I'm aware of that. Yeah.
I know.
But yeah,
Well,
it's super cool to talk to you. I'm definitely going to check out that documentary, and if nothing else, I
yeah,
will
the
be in
Raymond,
touch to
Raymond
let you know
Scott
what
one.
I
Yeah.
think of
Uh,
it. But
are you using those guitars back there that I see?
uh,
Or is this a background?
no, they are not just for props. I should be using them more. I have recently started to show my acoustic guitar a bit of attention again, but it's been a while since I've played the electric. So, but
Oh,
it's one of these things that I want to carve out more space for. In recent times, because I got so sort of down the rabbit hole of doing interviews and features and all this stuff, I sort of my own music making sort of slipped by the wayside, but I definitely need to start regularly carving out more space for that again.
I'll bet your happiness index will go up if you do.
I
I
agree
thought,
with you. As
yeah,
soon
that's
as you were
it.
talking about, the importance of people sitting down and picking up instruments, I was like, yeah, it's true. I know I need that psychologically.
Is your electric under the bed or is it on a guitar stand right now?
They're actually both next to each other. The electric's
Oh,
just behind the acoustic.
oh, those are in those two cases. They look like the same case from here.
No, it's actually two, and I've got a bass guitar over at my girlfriend's place because I'm just in the process of getting a proper case for it. So I do have intentions to start playing the bass again because I
Where does your amp live? Oh, but this that's windscreen is blocking it for me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What is that? Little Fender guy?
Oh yeah, it's a tiny little Vox guitar amp, and then
Oh,
I've got a bass amp underneath that as well. But
oh, I see. Oh, Vox, as you can pick it up in your hand, basically. That one.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have a gigantic amp that was too heavy to carry and
Uh,
was just kind of pointless to have in terms of the size
yeah.
of it. So
Some of them are shockingly heavy. I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you
I
have to
remember
be
when this
practical.
guitar player joined a band I was in with a Mesa Boogie single 12, and I could not believe it when I picked this thing up. I'm like, you are, because I felt like it was 80 pounds. Well, yeah, good. Get back to playing. All right, good talking to you. I look
Johnny,
forward to
pleasure.
seeing this and sharing it.
Nice
All
one.
right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.